Welcome to Time Track. This is episode 36 of Time Track. Everything's better with time in front of it. That's our theme for tonight. Anyway, my name is Tim Mitchell. I'm in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
And in a special treat, we have Jonathan Kuline in Ottawa, Ontario.
Greetings from our nation's capital. Scenic, cold,
Ottawa.
Very, very icy Ottawa, Ontario, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I sit mere steps away from our cradle of democracy here.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Justin said to say hi.
Justin said, okay. Wasn't sure which Justin you were referring to there for a minute.
Well, you know.
He does drive fast, but you never know.
Me and the PM, we tight.
Yeah, you and the PM. All right. She's fanfare or something. I don't know. But
yeah, I'm waving a Canadian flag. It's like 6 feet tall. You should see it. It's a hell of a thing.
Well, as you remember, we used to make Canadian flags, so
yes.
There you go.
Well, you cannot throw a stone without hitting one here, or, since it's Ottawa, a snowball.
That's true. At least you can go skating on the Rideau Canal. No, I guess you can't.
I could. It was an option, except that I've been here for, all week long, and at night the temperature gets down to damn near minus 30, and that's
not so much.
Beyond my comfort zone for my attire that I brought with me, so that's not happening.
Oh, you didn't bring like warm winter attire?
I brought warm winter attire, but I think my definition of warm winter attire and Ottawa's definition of warm winter attire do not align.
Right. Okay. All right, well, let's dig in. So do we have some fact check this week, Jonathan?
Yes, indeed.
It's all my fact check, I guess.
Well, no, I added a couple things to yours, but if I can do it, or you can do it.
I see what you added. Oh, yes, you added a couple of things.
I added a couple of things, yeah.
All right, well, we can dig in. So Cardinal, the TV show, which I mentioned tonight, by the way, we're recording on February 28th, and this is the season finale of Cardinal, so you have to watch it on some sort of streaming channel if you watch it. But anyway, at 4:55, I mentioned Cardinal taking place. They keep mentioning Algonquin, and we have a big Algonquin park north of in the north end of Toronto, or Ontario, I should say. But apparently, it takes place in the fictitious town of Algonquin Bay. So, and I looked it up. There is no Algonquin Bay. At 7:18, we were talking about baseball for some reason, which I'm almost stupefied by the fact that we get onto baseball. I thought it was Stacy Keach was the name I remember, but I always think I get the name Stacy Keach and Dennis Quaid. They're kind of crossed in a vortex in my mind. But Dennis Quaid played the Rookie in 2002. That was who I was thinking of last week when we were talking about the Rookie, which was the TV show starring Nathan Fillion. And Jonathan, you've added some stuff here as well, right?
Yeah, so Dennis Quaid played the Rookie in the baseball movie, the Disney baseball movie, The Rookie, about a guy who in his 30s tries out to be a baseball player and makes the baseball team, based on a true story.
Same idea as the TV show with the cops. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. And then Jaime mentioned Rookie of the Year, which was a 1993 baseball movie about a kid who breaks his arm and ends up being able to throw 100 miles an hour and joins the Chicago Cubs. And then I said, wasn't the Rookie the movie with Albert Brooks? And nope, the movie with Albert Brooks that I mentioned was a 1994 movie called The Scout, which also starred Brendan Fraser. So
Canada's own Brendan Fraser.
We really did not do well by the baseball movie.
And The Natural starred Robert Redford. We did get that right.
Yes, that one we got right. But
and that was actually Glenn Close's first movie, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it was.
There you go.
To mention that during the Oscars, which I'm sure we might talk about later.
Yes, I think that might come up.
Right.
So yes, there's your baseball movie update. We will now no longer refer to baseball movies on this podcast.
Right.
Especially when they confusingly have single names like the and then pick something. The Rookie, the Natural,
Scout, the Scout, Rookie, the Natural,
podcast,
the Pitcher.
Yeah. Field of the Dreams.
Stapler.
Yes.
The Field of Dreams, yes. Okay.
The Field of Dreams. The 8 Men Out.
Right.
So 30 minutes in, we were talking about Jessica Jones, and I mentioned when we were talking about it being canceled that it may have been on its way out anyways because the series creator was leaving, and we could not remember her name. Her name is Melissa Rosenberg. Of course, she's very, very talented. She wrote many of the episodes and series creator for Jessica Jones series on Netflix, which is no more after its third and final season coming up.
Right. And I wrote down Marvel Moratorium because you guys mentioned it around the same time, but I didn't get a chance to go back and investigate what that was about. Any ideas?
Oh, moratorium?
That's why it says
Was
Marvel
it the
Moratorium.
2-year gap we mentioned something that was like contractually required that when they end a show, it can't show up anywhere else, including Disney's own Disney Plus, for like 2 years. And we were unclear precisely where that 2 years starts, like beginning of season, end of season, date of cancellation, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't think there was anywhere to verify that. I think that was just something that leaked out after Daredevil was canceled. They were saying that it couldn't appear anywhere else for 2 years, but they were not clear if that was applying to all series, and we weren't sure if that was applying to 2 years from the date of cancellation or 2 years from the date of the last series of cancellation. And so, we can't verify that. All we have to do is just stay tuned and see if one of those shows turns up again on, well, Jaime will have some news later about Hulu and see how that turns out.
At 1 hour and 18 minutes and 18 seconds, I mentioned I was talking about The Man in the High Castle on Amazon Prime, which I've been watching. And the main character, one of the main characters, there's several of them actually, is a gentleman named Rufus Sewell, who you've probably seen in many, many shows. Usually plays a drunk artist or a Snidely Whiplash type villain. Anyway, in this one, he plays an American Nazi, and he is, and of course we're playing our favorite German game, which is if you want to name something, and you want to make it really big and exaggerated, just keep tacking on words to make it bigger. So he plays the Obergruppenführer, which I believe is senior best leader or something like that. And spoilers for season 3, because he becomes Oberstgruppenführer in season 3, so which I've just got caught up to. So lots of fun in terms of how they come up with these. I don't know, are these real? Jonathan, these are real names, or are they just?
They are, in fact. Yes. German is a compound language. There are many languages in the world that do this, but German is a really nasty one for doing it. So they compound words. They just glue them all together. So if you lived on something street, if it was like, I live on 2 doves and a salmon street, they would literally just glue all that together and make it into one giant word, including the word street. It's not pleasant. It makes learning the language very, very challenging. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, Jaime can appreciate this from an Objective-C. We do the same thing with our class names, right? So
just keep bolting stuff on there. The wordier, the better.
Exactly. The more we call it self-documenting code, right? All right. So I guess we'll jump into the headlines, and I think, Jaime, you're going to lead off today.
Yeah, right on theme with this very podcast, and that is Star Trek Discovery is so doomed. It's getting a 3rd season before this season is even over. So you can look forward to more Star Trek Discovery. And there's a note here about Michelle Paradise taking over as the 5th showrunner. She's one of the show's current co-executive producers. Yeah, so from this article, it is Brian Fuller, Aaron Harberts, Gretchen J. Berg, Alex Kurtzman, who is the current showrunner, and now you have Michelle Paradise. So they switch showrunners every few episodes, it seems, based on it's almost an anthology series. Like I think Kurtzman won it originally, or maybe Brian Fuller. I can't remember who won it.
Yeah, it's funny that After Trek show doesn't seem. Is it on CBS All Access? Because it's not on Space anymore. The wrap up where they sort of do a mini podcast at the end of the show.
I haven't looked for it, but I also don't remember seeing it promoted in the originals section of CBS All Access.
Oh, really? Yeah, because it's American produced. I forgot the name of the young gentleman who was running it, but I know Gretchen was on it a few episodes when she was a showrunner. That's just why I'm surprised that there were that many showrunners. All right, so I guess let's talk about the Oscars for a minute, then, Jonathan. We can talk about your point, and we can throw in some more stuff.
There you go. So I'll start with the nerdy stuff to kick us off. So of course, Oscar night was a few days ago, and Black Panther walked away with 3 Oscars, none of which were in the glamour categories. Of course, it didn't win for Best Picture, and it didn't win for some of the high end ones that you kind of hope if it was going to have a big breakthrough. But it did win for, it won for Best Original Score, Best Costume Design, and Best Production Design. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Sound Mixing, Best Sound Editing, and Best Original Song. That was the Kendrick Lamar song. So a good showing. I mean, nice breakthrough. It was of course, we talked about this, the first sort of those Marvel cinematic movies, big time comic book movies to get nominated for Best Picture. And it was shown lots of love, but in typical Oscar fashion, it seemed a little bit like they were just sort of, you can have a few of the less prestigious awards, and we'll save the good ones for the films that we like. Meanwhile, we got...
hang on.
Oh, you want to dive into this one?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to point out that I did sort of semi-predict that I didn't think Black Panther would really win an Oscar. And the reason reason I say that is I have 30 years of watching Oscars, and I remember watching the Oscars when the greatest movie of all time that was ever made, end of sentence, period, Star Wars was nominated for a few awards, and it only won for editing. So I have been disappointed for 30 years, so I was not, you know, I'd learned from Frank Zappa, expect nothing and you won't be disappointed when you don't get it. So yeah, I didn't think. I'm surprised that Black Panther won any, to be honest with you, right? So and the same holds true for Bohemian Rhapsody. I was actually shocked that they won the Golden Globe for that one.
Yep, yeah, and it is a bit of a disappointment, but then it's quite predictable for anybody who sort of follows along with how the award stuff is doled out. I mean, it seemed very unlikely when you look at the rest of the candidates for Best Picture and you look at the rest of the candidates for the major awards. It didn't get nominations for Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor. It didn't get a Best Director for Ryan Coogler, which is kind of a shame because I think he did a wonderful job. When you see that stacked up against it, and especially when you see the other contenders all have their best directors and their, all their star-studded lineups and everything, you kind of see the writing on the wall. But it is disappointing. It just does feel an awful lot like we put this in here so people will watch, as opposed to we really considered this as what it was, which was a really, really well-made movie.
Right. And by the same token, though, if you look at the kind of movies at the Oscars, and this is the Academy, don't forget, this is like all the senior, wizened old people in Hollywood voting for this stuff.
Yep.
Green Book totally was a real, it was almost a shoe-in. So would be the one that Coleman won for.
The Favorite.
The Favorite. That would be another type of movie that I would expect to win an Oscar.
Yeah, Roma
perhaps,
absolutely. Alfonso Cuarón walked away with 3 out of 4 Oscars. I mean, not a bad night.
Yeah. But we did make history because this was the first superhero movie to be nominated for Best Picture, right? So
yeah, but again, this is exactly what the backlash against there only being 5 Best Pictures was in the year. It started really earnestly in the year that The Dark Knight came out and wasn't nominated because that was a blockbuster, and B, people were like, oh, this is a level above what we've seen before. Christopher Nolan made a masterpiece. How could you not recognize that, especially with the performance that ended up winning an Oscar for
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger. It seemed like there was a lot of people saying, how could that not be among the top movies that year? And that sort of spurred them to say, oh, well, what if we expand this category so that we can have up to 10 finalists for it, and that way more people can put, we were an Oscar nominee on our packaging for our DVDs, and use it as a sales pitch and everything else. But part of that was an appeasement so that they knew that if they could still continue to nominate the 5 movies they wanted to nominate as Oscar voters, which are always going to be the artists and the favorites and the the sort of prestige movies, but they can also throw a few bones in there and put the Get Outs and the Black Panthers and the movies that they don't necessarily want to be there, but they know will attract people's interest to their program. So maybe I'm a cynic.
Didn't Get Out win last year?
It won Best Original Screenplay last year. It didn't win any other award. What'd you think about all this, Jaime?
Yeah, I was having a hard time predicting. I went in thinking, okay, it probably, just given the way the Critics' Choice Awards and the Golden Globes went, it probably should be Roma that wins. But Hollywood being kind of old school, it sets a real bad precedence for them if they acknowledge that a non-theatrical film, like for realsies, like I'm pretty sure Roma had like a limited release somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it had to have one to qualify. It had to appear in a theater for, I think, a certain number of screenings or a week or something.
Yeah, it played in the Toronto the TIFF theater here for a number of weeks.
Yeah, but that was presumably, and I don't know because I could be saying the wrong thing about Roma, but a lot of these that Netflix has tried, like with Beasts of No Nation, is like, all right, let's just technically check the box here so it will qualify. But they're not wholeheartedly and earnestly putting it into theaters. Even though it's the future of film, ultimately, I think that I could not have seen Roma winning just because the Academy would be like, well, what does this mean for theater and film? So I was like, all right, it's probably not.
I don't know. I definitely think that I still think film is an art form that needs to be seen on a big screen. I mean, I waited my whole life to see Time Bandits on the big screen, and it was phenomenal on the huge screen. And I've only ever seen it on VHS or, DVD or high def television, but to see it actually 40 feet tall is an amazing movie, right? So I think that I know people don't like to go to theaters and it's a hassle, and you have to stand in line and they have crappy popcorn and all that kind of stuff, but you're there for the visual and the audio effect of what these directors are trying to put in front of you, right? So.
Oh, for sure. So I'm not arguing about that point. I definitely agree. That's why on this very show we'll talk about this movie is going to be way better. Go see it in theaters. Don't wait for DVD or streaming. But I can see that the future will be more on demand, more simulcasting type stuff. Well,
I didn't know that the Oscars had this. Did the Oscars have a rule that you had to be so many times it's shown in the theater to be a contender?
Yes.
Oh,
to qualify for being in recognition for that, you have to have aired in a theater for, I can't recall, we could look that up for fact check next week, but there is a qualification period. And I recall that just because I think it was Kevin Smith had mentioned that in one of his podcasts at one point, and it was certainly not in relation to one of his movies, all due respect to Kevin. He was talking about somebody else and something, again, I think they had to put it in the theater for a certain number of showings.
But he's in the Academy, so of course he has a vote.
He is in the Academy. Again, he was the executive producer, one of the executive producers for Good Will Hunting, which won several Oscars. So.
Oh, is that how you get in the Academy?
Well, if you are, I think there is a certain amount of qualifications. I don't know if you can just sign in, but for him, I think he's listed in there as a producer and a director.
I think as a previous winner too, maybe, right?
He hasn't won. He has never been nominated nor never won.
But you said he was executive producer.
He was executive producer of a movie that won several, but I don't know if that was enough to qualify him or how that works. But I do know that he and Scott are both Scott Mosier, his producer, are both.
Oh, really? Okay.
In the Academy. But I think you get your membership, I think, based on your category, and I think you get to vote for your category. So I think Kevin and Scott can vote for the things that they have been involved with. So they wouldn't necessarily have a vote for best actor, but they would have a vote for best director. I'm not sure how that works, but
because I thought it was really odd that the Buster Scruggs movie, the Coen Brothers movie, and Roma, I know they both came out simultaneously, like not like a week delayed or whatever.
Yep.
You could watch it at home, or you could go down to the TIFF Lightbox on King Street and watch it. Or I think we were playing in other theaters too, right? But and I wondered, obviously that's the rule, but it just seemed odd to me that you would do that, right?
Well, as you say, some people I think want to have the experience of seeing these. I mean, Alfonso Cuarón is a masterful filmmaker.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I have not watched Roma yet. My wife just watched it this week, and she really loved it. Although she did say it was a huge bummer. But his movies are so beautiful. I could imagine seeing that on the big screen is much more immersive experience than seeing it on, no matter how nice a television set you have. It's a very different experience, just as you were saying. The other thing to remember for the Netflix thing was some people were talking about it as a backlash, right? They were saying, well, Roma didn't win the big prize because the Academy members don't want to just start throwing Oscars at the Amazons and the Netflixes, because Amazon, of course, won a couple of years ago for one of their movies. So, they're talking about, maybe they decided to sort of punish them. But that being said, they won an Oscar. A Netflix movie won an Oscar the other night for Best Short Documentary for Period End of Sentence.
Right.
So,
really? Yeah.
So they were nominated across a couple of categories. As you say, there was a Ballad of Buster Scruggs was nominated in a few categories. Roma obviously was nominated for, I think, 9. And Period End of Sentence actually won the Oscar for Best Short Documentary. And you can just watch that right now on Netflix, and could have been able to watch it for a while now. So they kind of got their foot in the door there, but I think it also was slammed on them, I think, when it comes to Roma, to have had those 3 other categories, including Best Director, but not Best Picture, is kind of a strange seeming slight.
Yeah, right. All right.
The other thing when it comes to Oscars that we can talk about is the Best Animated Picture category. So Best Animated Picture this year went to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which, as I have mentioned on our previous podcasts, I loved. I thought it was one of my absolute favorite movies from last year. Now, that one's an interesting one because when you reflect on that one, you can't help but love some of these little tasty irony moments. So the guys who are behind the Lego movie and behind so Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse won Best Picture, Best Animated Picture, I should say. It's awesome that it won because we are talking about how this thing came out and won an Oscar for Lord and Miller, the writing and producing and directing pair, who were fired off of the Han Solo, a Star Wars story movie earlier in the year. So in the same year that they were fired off that picture came out, was was the lowest rated and also lowest producing at the box office Star Wars movie of all time, and widely regarded as nyeh. These two guys put out one of the most original animated pictures in years and walked away with Oscars, which is nice. You got to admit, that's pretty sweet.
Now, have you seen this one yet?
I saw it, yeah. Sherry and I went and saw it over the holidays, and it is amazing. It is truly one of the most unique animated pictures I've seen in a long time. The animation style, the way that it fuses different types of art, it's really quite impressive, and it's just a great story. It's a really fresh take on the Spider-Man mythos that everyone's familiar with. It does beat you over the head with all that, backstory nonsense. It's just really good. So it's coming out in a couple of weeks on digital and on DVD. I highly recommend people tune in and pick that one up and make an effort, because it's a really wonderful flick.
Interesting. Cool. All right. Well, next on here is it's sort of what we call follow-up, but I was talking about Toronto City Hall being in movies, and just lo and behold, a couple of weeks ago, or last week, I guess, the Handmaids from The Handmaid's Tale were seen walking in a group being filmed for an upcoming episode of The Handmaid's Tale. You can see them on. There's a ramp that runs down. You can see in the photo in the show notes here. That's a ramp that runs down beside what we call Nathan Phillips Square, and you can see them marching down there. And you can see a picture of Liz Moth here, and some quotes from. Of course, as they say, they've gone beyond the book. But I recall last time I saw Nathan Phillips Square or the Toronto City Hall building in the episode, they were saying it was Boston. So who knows what they'll say about it in this upcoming episode that we'll be seeing.
And you're sure it was them and not just women protesting against the provincial government?
No, I think the microphones, booms, and the cameras on tracks, and the fact that it's Elizabeth Moth.
Moth they probably have to be a few blocks further north if they were protesting against.
Well, it is City Hall, so who knows, right? It could be. They could maybe Mayor
Tory got on their bad side.
It said something weird, and and of course, when he was questioned about it, he said, "No, of course not. That's not what I meant at all."
Yeah, of course.
That's Canadian humor for those of you who are not following along.
I'm sorry, eh?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. Okay.
Yeah, have some maple syrup and some poutine. Sorry about that.
All right. Yeah, and have a beaver tail. All right. Anyway, carry on.
Well, here we go. So now we're going to do a little section I like to call Coming Soon. Ooh. Coming Soon, Space Jam 2.
Ooh. Didn't we talk about this already?
We talked about Space Jam. We talked about what Space Jam is, I think, a couple episodes ago. And I think I had mentioned that Space Jam 2 was in rumors, and now we have a confirmation that it is officially coming. It's been long rumored.
Wait, isn't it? Let me guess. It's who's the guy? Not Michael Jordan. It's going to be... we talked about this.
Yeah, LeBron James. We said it was going to be a LeBron James. So they've officially released a date.
Okay,
so it's July 16th, 2021. We are going to see Space Jam 2, the long-awaited
so
sequel.
I have to wait 3 years before I get to see it?
So good news, the movie's coming. Bad news, you'll have forgotten that it's coming by the time you find out that it's coming.
I think that's the good news.
Yeah. And I know you've been waiting for this for a long time, so you'll be excited.
I better go watch Space Jam 1 now, I guess, right?
Probably. I know Jaime's excited.
I did see the original, and I will correct your math, Tim. That's not 3 years, that's 2. You know why? Because apparently I can do a twofer in 2021. I can go watch Space Jam in the early afternoon and then go watch some Seattle hockey in the evening.
Oh, it's true. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I don't know when hockey starts. It probably starts around there. Preseason, maybe.
What's your pick for the hockey team name, by the way?
I forgot what I said the last time.
Some sort of sea creature or something like that.
The Kraken?
The Kraken, the Totem, the Sasquatches, or Yetis. I think I went with Yeti.
Yeah, doesn't the Kraken just beg a lot of butt jokes? Like, don't. Time to go fill the Kraken? I don't know. Anyways, back to Coming Soon. Coming soon, Aquaman 2 for you, Tim, 3 years from now. Aquaman 2 coming in 2022, so obviously made $1 billion at the box office. Aquaman 1 did, starting in December, and it's pretty easy to do the math on part 2 coming, but we have confirmation now it is officially being done. It is officially coming in 2022, so 3 more years.
Have any of us seen Aquaman 1 yet?
In fact, I haven't.
I have not. It's definitely on the list when it comes to some sort of streaming service that I can
absolutely.
do. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Coming soon, Game of Thrones Oreos. Oh, that's right.
Wait, what?
For the branding crossover you've been waiting for, just in time for the final season of Game of Thrones, we have news of the Game of Thrones Oreos. That's right. You're going to get your Game of Thrones little mascots and icons all over your favorite stuffed cookies coming soon. There's a lovely little thing on Instagram that shows that there's going to be a whole pile of Oreos branded with Game of Thrones logos coming right before the final season on April 14th. Because we wanted that.
Yeah. Well, didn't we have Game of Thrones Star Wars stuff? I mean Oreo Star Wars and stuff?
Yeah, I think Oreo has done weird crossovers before, but imagining in my mind what kind of bloodbath the last season of Game of Thrones is going to be, I don't know that Oreos was the first place my mind went.
No.
Could there not have been a more appropriate food branding crossover? Like something with cooked meat or I don't know,
ice cream,
beer,
frozen foods? Yeah, like how about some frozen foods?
And you can have little pops for kids, those ones that are shaped like candy characters like Pokemon or SpongeBob, and they have the little bubblegum eyeballs. You can have the Night King.
Yeah, it's a nice frozen direwolf snack.
Yeah.
Coming soon, the Doom Patrol. So we talked about how this series is coming. It's out now. It is currently airing weekly on the DC Comics app in the United States.
Oh, really?
Which begged the question, okay, we don't have that here. When will it turn up in Canada? And now we have an answer. The Doom Patrol is coming to the Space Channel in April. Ooh. They are now running promos for it. We do not have a date yet, but it is slated to come in April. And that's right. It's part of our cable package. We do not have to fork over.
We do have to pay something for it. Let's not keep saying that we don't pay for it.
I didn't say it was free. I just said it is coming as part of our cable package.
Right,
you'll be able to watch it, as opposed to being able to watch it only if you have the DC Universe app in the United States, which is a subscription service.
I saw a commercial for it during the broadcast of Star Trek just now.
Indeed.
Who is Cyclops is one of the characters? Who else is in this thing?
Cyclops is in fact not one of the characters in this.
Well, some guy with a robot eye.
Cyborg, the guy who was in Justice League.
Okay.
Yes, so Cyborg. Let's see. We got Negative Man. We got Cyborg. We've got Robot Man. The Elastic Woman. It's sort of a hybrid of a couple of iterations of the Doom Patrol from over the years. But it's a good cast. It looks like it's going to be fun. Again, that was on my radar. That something I wanted to watch. It's disappointing that we don't get to watch it at the same time as our American neighbors. But as we've talked many times about on this podcast, you kind of get used to that treatment after a while. So.
Right.
Coming soon, a third Walking Dead series. Oh, that's right. We got news today that a third Walking Dead series is coming.
Do we really need one? Really?
Well, that's the big question. So this is from Deadline. Deadline had this exclusive today that they're in the quarterly earnings call. AMC Networks confirmed that they are developing in active development a third series. So you guys tell me, Jaime, are you tuned in for a third Walking Dead series?
Probably not. I have not seen Fear the Walking Dead, and I'm nowhere even close to being current on The Walking Dead. So I think it would just be a little much for me. But I guess I can always go and binge. It always gives you something to work on, I guess. But I haven't seen. I know there seems to be some sort of less than satisfied nature for maybe not just you guys, but like across the fan base. So I'm a little surprised that they'd go all in on a third series, unless they feel like it would free them up to do something in the same kind of vein, but without the same restrictions that they've had for, I assume, whatever baggage they're carrying for many, many years of mostly the same characters.
It made me wonder if this was the end for the original series. It made me wonder if they're going to pilot this one. It's awfully hard to run 3 series, even across the same, universe. It seems like they might think about stopping the original at some point and just picking up from there, because just the contracts on some of those people have got to get expensive after a while.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's gotten a little tired. I mean, I used to watch it. I would watch it and the Fear of the Walking Dead every Sunday night, pretty much because there was nothing else to do on Sunday nights. But there's been other things to distract me, and it's getting kind of tired. I mean, like they had a really bad, really sort of evil evil, almost too evil character, Negan, right? And, they kind of defeated him, and then Rick kind of left the show for no real good reason. And then Maggie kind of wandered off, like as if she just sort of said, "Excuse me, I'm going to the store for a minute," and she kind of left the show. And it got kind of weird with all the different, like it's getting to the point where it's implausible. It's almost like a comedy of itself, sort of thing, right? So, and Fear the Walking Dead was a sort of a fresh take on what would happen in the other parts of the country and that kind of stuff. But they kind of started it at a different point in time, and I guess while Rick is in the coma at the very beginning of the first series, right? But I don't know. I mean, I'm probably going to get angry letters and stuff like that. But I don't know. I don't know if I would watch a third one after all this, because there's so much more better TV that's out there to watch that I'm missing because I spend my time watching this one.
Well, and again, the zombie thing, again, the Walking Dead has been a fresh take on it. I like the comic book when it first came out. I like the series when it first came out. But there's only so far you can go. And to credit, Robert Kirkman on the comic book series and on the television series, they have had some sort of fresh takes. But it also feels kind of bloated and slow moving after a while. Like, it's awfully hard to keep that kind of thing fresh when it's just like zombie of the week, oh, we barely escaped that one. Oh, we killed off a tangential character. Once a year we kill off a major character. Like,
Well, a friend of mine who's a famous radio television personality, we asked him about it, and he kind of goes, I'm not watching that because I know how it's going to end. It's just going to keep going and going and going, and it's never going to end.
Well, and that was the allure of the series for me. It's certainly been done by other people before it was done by Kirkman, but he's done it very well, which is it's the idea of 28 days later or 28 months later or whatever, the idea of not how do you survive the apocalypse, but how do you continue to survive years after the apocalypse.
Dealing with the people, right? Yeah.
How do you continue to survive when it's not like, oh, and somebody's going to come into the rescue. It just continues. Like, this is it. This is reality. This is what you have.
It becomes a soap opera with zombies.
Well,
basically.
And that's essentially the problem is that can you continue to tell that story for ad infinitum?
Yeah, I mean, The Sopranos had to end. Lost had to end.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would put
MASH
Walking Dead in the category with those, but sure.
What's that?
So I'm not sure I put Walking Dead in the category with those two shows, but okay.
In terms of height, you mean, or quality, or
yeah,
what?
Yeah. I mean, certainly part of the zeitgeist, absolutely, but as far as quality, I don't think so.
Yeah, all right.
And our last bit for me here. So we got news this week. So Titans, which is a series that was again on the DC Universe app in the United States and available on Netflix here in Canada. So we know that they're going to get a second season, and we get a little bit of a spoiler for those people who haven't watched the series and want to watch it. I'll give you 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. They've announced the casting of Connor Kent, who comic fans will recognize as Superboy. Apparently, he makes a cameo appearance on the first season, and so now we get news that yes, there's going to be a Boy of Steel in the season 2 of this show. So that's kind of neat news.
So Titans is an animated series, or
it is not? It's a live action series. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah. So Joshua Orpin, who's an Australian young actor, is going to be playing Connor Kent / Superboy in season 2. So cool.
Oh, that's what you mean by Connor Kent. Okay, I thought it was an actor for some reason. I don't know.
No. Connor Kent is the alias of Superboy, who in this iteration would be a clone. He's a clone. So this came from the whole Death of Superman storyline back in the 1990s. Right. Superman was killed at one point in an effort to try and bring him back, or otherwise they scrape off a few cells and they clone a new Superboy out of Superman's DNA. He is sort of a genetic copy, but not quite the same, and he obviously is younger. So the idea would be that he sort of takes on this alias and lives his own life. And was a pretty popular character at times, and ended up becoming one of the Teen Titans in the Titans series. And it's interesting to see him brought to life in this way. We've never seen this iteration of this character. He has been a character in the cartoons, but not action series. Cool.
All right.
So the next thing we've got is apparently coming to BBC One. We have a teaser here for the BBC's Is Dark Material series. You might recognize that as being the collection for The Golden Compass, The Subtle Knife, and The Amber Spyglass. Very similar kind of thing where you have the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, and The Return of the King as the pieces underneath the overarching Lord of the Rings, in case you're confused. I know I was certainly thinking, wait, isn't that like a Golden Compass thing? That sounds real familiar, because I've never read the books. I only saw I think it was like 2005 movie that came out a little while back. but this is going to be apparently an 8-episode season, and maybe a second season. I'm really unclear in this news, and I apologize. But there's a neat teaser. It looks really cool. It looks moody. It's got James McAvoy and Hamilton, Lin-Manuel. What's his name? Miranda. Thank you. I couldn't remember his last name. So
it's got Ruth Wilson, who's really phenomenal in Luther as well.
Oh, yeah, she's great.
Yeah, and The Fair, apparently, but I haven't seen that one yet.
Yep.
All right, that's cool. So mine is kind of a fun thing. If you have an Android phone, if you have an iPhone, tune into another podcast for a few minutes. But apparently there's a video here of, apparently I saw a Childish Gambino Playmoji, where you can, I don't know if it's sort of a virtual reality experience or whatever, but it's basically Donald Glover turned into like a 3-dimensional Playmoji, I'm doing air quotes, for the Google Play phone. And there's a video here of Donald Glover dancing with himself, as this animatronic or animated character. So that's the latest thing on your Android phone is Playmojis.
What does a Playmoji do?
Well, in the case of this one, it's like a full body, like a full, arms, legs, head, kind of thing. Looks sort of like Donald Glover, unless you see Donald Glover dancing beside it. And he's just doing all the moves from that video that he did, This Is America or whatever it's called. I forget what it was. So all the moves he does from that, and so you can dance along with Donald Glover or Childish Gambino, right? His alter ego.
Yeah, I view it as kind of the love child between the Animoji feature on iPhones, where you can they use the face recognition to switch like, oh, I'm a bear, I'm a dragon, I'm these other cutesy faces, and combined with the Xbox Live sort of more human-looking avatars, and then you get something kind of in between where you have a cartoony and I wouldn't say super realistic because it's still very stylized. It's more like Into the Spider-Verse style of being human and realistic than it is, like a cute teddy bear from Animoji.
Right. Cool. All right. And the next piece is kind of very exciting for me. I don't know what you guys did during your lunches when you were kids, but when we were kids, we came home and watched the Flintstones at lunchtime, which was a cartoon sort of TV show that was on, I don't know when it was on in the 60s, but it was replayed forever in the 70s and I suppose in the 80s.
Yep.
But apparently Lego is coming out with the Flintstones set, which includes the house and, the 4 characters. Well, 4 characters. Carol pointed out there's no Dino, the dog, but there's Fred and Barney and Wilma and Betty. And the little characters are kind of cool. They're painted to look exactly like them. Like Fred and Barney have that 5 o'clock shadow they always sort of had. And Wilma's pearl necklace and her, her, I don't know what leopard skin, it's not leopard, it's white, so I don't know what it is, some snow leopard, I guess, dress. And of course the house with the sort of tilted roof and the car with where Fred and Barney are the power source. And it includes the big drive-through restaurant ribs that when you put them on, it tilts over the car, right? So that's coming out for $7.99, and it's available tomorrow as we record. This is February 28th, so March 1st it's available for order on the Lego store for $79 Canadian.
Cool.
Yeah, I assume, just following on the comment about Dino, it makes sense to have those be expansion packs to continue the series.
Right.
Dino, there's a notable absence of Bam Bam and Pebbles.
Right.
Eventually the collector stuff will go so far will be like the saber-toothed cat that he puts outside at the very end, with an alternate dark scheme of the house so you can recreate the nighttime mode.
And they got to come out with the record player, which is the bird that you tip over. Of course, we have to explain to people what record players are.
No, they're back.
I know.
I immediately when I saw this the link, it made me think that one of the things that the Lego company's been doing the last few years is these individual mystery packs of figures. So they've done them for their own random Lego characters. They've done them related to the Lego movies and the Lego Batman movies. They've done a Harry Potter series. They've done a Disney characters series. I immediately flashed to the fact that I wonder if they'll do a Flintstones series. They usually do 12 or 15 or 12 or 16, I think, different characters. They did a Simpsons one as well. I'm sure you could easily pick out different outfits. The Loyal Order of Water Buffaloes exclusive Barney and Fred, and the bowling Fred, and you could do all these different variations. Plus, you can do the Dino and the Hoppy. You got to do Hoppy. You got to do the Great Kazoo. You got to do all these characters you could whip out there. Mr. Slate. So yeah, that makes sense to me, especially if they if they're still going after that nostalgia market. It's funny though that the last few years, like I've bought and been given several of these the sort of Cars, the iconic Cars series that they've been putting out. And I don't mean Cars in the Disney Pixar sense. I mean they did a Lego Doc Brown's DeLorean with Marty and Doc. They did a Ecto 1 with the Ghostbusters. They've done a few of these different sets that are sort of like the iconic cars from different series. And it's funny to sort of think that the Flintstones is now added to that list. You don't really think about it all the time because it was a cartoon, but that is a pretty iconic car. Sticking the legs at the bottom to hit the brakes, and that's a pretty famous car they got there.
But aren't these from the Lego Ideas thing, like where fans are putting together sets and then they vote on whether they'll build them, like kind of like a Kickstarter kind of thing?
It is, yeah. It's like a campaign. So basically, they have this whole thing where you can create your own sets, and then you basically put them up, and they put them against each other in a popular vote to see which one that should get made, and that's how they ended up making. They did a whole one of the original Ghostbusters headquarters that way, and there's been a few sets over the years that people. I think that's why they did the Women in Space one a few years ago too.
Right. Yeah.
Or Women of NASA, I should say. It's all these people have these great ideas. Again, it's putting the power back in the hands of the people. It's amazing what people come up with. Even I've seen a few of the losing ones, and they're amazing. Some stuff you wish they'd make, and some stuff where you look at it and think that would be great, but it will cost $10,000 worth of Lego.
Yeah. You can go bowling with Fred and Wilma as well. I'm just looking through the pictures, which I hadn't looked at on the link. And of course, for $400, you'll be able to get the big dinosaur that he takes to work, right, and digs in the rock quarry.
Yeah,
of course.
How are you not going to get that?
Yeah, you get that with your Millennium Falcon, right?
Yeah, well, I can sit next to my Death Star, which I do have.
Yeah. So next up, we have a movie that I saw in an IMAX version once, which was really cool in IMAX. So what's that?
Yeah, if you're a fan of sci-fi and if you're listening to this show, you almost certainly are. And if you remember our conversation a week or two ago about what can happen when streaming services go away, well, we have the product for you. Alien will be released in 4K HDR for its 40th anniversary. So this particular Blu-ray will have the theatrical cut and the director's cut. And regardless of what happens to the rest of the world, as long as you've got a Blu-ray player and presumably a qualified TV to play that, you'll be good.
So I have a question, sidebar, for a moment. So I have a 4K Apple TV. Does that mean that when I watch the movies I've bought from Apple, I'm getting 4K video streaming down to my TV?
If those movies are available on iTunes in 4K, which not all movies are, it will say it when you look at it in iTunes. It'll tell you if it's a 4K movie or not. Some are still just 1080p.
Regular K, yeah.
Yep, like they're high defs, but there are ones that are 4K HDR, and as long as you have the right connections, you obviously have to have a HDMI cable that is capable of carrying that signal from your Apple TV to your 4K TV. But yeah, if you have that all set up, yes, then in theory, when you're watching that, you're watching 4K. And it's the same thing. So I've done the same thing with Netflix. So upgraded Netflix so the Netflix is in 4K. Again, it's not every broadcast, but especially a lot of their own content that they develop is actually done in 4K. And yeah, as long as you have it connected by the right signal sources and with the right equipment, then yes, you are getting a 4K signal.
Cool, good to know. All right, so I get to watch Alien in 4K.
Yes.
Wait, I don't own it yet.
Well, I would check actually right now. Like I don't know if you could just buy it right now. Like they're saying this is you can get it on 4K, for its 40th anniversary. I wonder if it's on 4K right now. If you buy it through the iTunes store, you can watch it in 4K tonight.
Right. Yeah. Well, I have like Blade Runner. I'm sure Blade Runner's in 4K, right?
Yeah. It's not everything on their catalog, but it is an awful lot. And they did it without an increase in cost, which I think was a shocking development considering, obviously that's the model that these things are built after. You want to go from VHS to DVD? That's going to cost you. You want to go from DVD to Blu-ray? That's going to cost you. You want to go from Blu-ray to 4K? That's going to cost you. Right, these guys just took your whole catalog and said, if we have it in 4K, you have it in 4K. Like, awesome.
Yeah. So just another sidebar. Guess what format my Blade Runner 2049 is in?
Is it 4K?
Well, no, it's ultraviolet.
Oh, yes. I just took a quick look for our own edification here on the iTunes store, and the copy that is available currently for the low price of $6.99 Canadian as a purchase is only HD, not 4K HD.
The original Blade Runner, or the
no? This is Alien.
Oh, Alien. I see. Okay.
Yes, Alien. You cannot watch in 4K. You can, however, get a 4K HDR version of Alien Covenant if you were feeling so inclined.
Interesting. Yeah, it's amazing. Alien's one of those box. It's been on DVD and box sets. I'm sure 1,000 people must own it. I see it in junk bins all the time, right? So
yeah, and I have several iterations of it. I have it on. I have the, what do they call it? The quadrology. I have the quadrology on Blu-ray, not 4K, but on Blu-ray.
Which is a shame because there's really only 2 good movies out of that whole series.
Yeah, I still kind of ride for the third one. I know it gets.
The third one, third one's actually pretty good.
David Fincher.
I was going to say the first and the third one are probably the best, I think, out of the movies, right?
Oh, I don't know. Part 2, James Cameron. That's a pretty good movie.
That's true. Actually, I mean, like it has its moments, right? Like Michelle Rodriguez.
A lot of people don't like the third one because it kind of undoes the second one. But David Fincher's a great filmmaker, and it's a really I understand why people have objections to the storyline, but it's a really well made movie, and it's really, really, really entertaining to just look at how this man makes movies.
Yeah, that's David Fincher said?
David Fincher, yeah.
Fincher, okay, cool. All right, what's next? Mr.
Well, Jonathan
Lopez
hinted at this earlier about Hulu. The story here is that Disney is reportedly in talks to buy AT&T's stake in Hulu. That would be a 10% stake for about $1 billion, US presumably.
Wow.
And that would give Disney up to 70% ownership depending on what happens, because Disney already has 30% of Hulu straight up, and it's in the process of acquiring 21st Century Fox, as we mentioned, which would give it another 30%. Add this 10 on top, and they have a commanding supermajority of control of that, assuming everything goes through, of course.
So this would give them 100% ownership? Is that, or did I miss the math on that? So they already owned a third. They're going to get the other third from buying Fox, and they would get the third if they get this from Universal?
No, this is 10% for
it's
$1 billion.
70%. So
so the total would be 70%.
So who owns the other 30%?
That's a good question.
Alex Baldwin?
Yeah, Alex Baldwin at Cabletown. Is it NBC probably that has the remaining?
The Scheinhard Wig Company?
Oh yeah, here we go. It's stated right here at the bottom. NBC Universal, which is owned by Comcast, noted that it is not interested in selling its 30% stake. But I kind of wonder about that, given that they will lose all the arguments in every business meeting regarding this. So.
Yeah, like they'll just Disney would just stack the board, right? Like you just stack the board with your guys, you vote down everything the other guys don't want.
30% of what Disney's bringing in, though. Hello?
Well, that's it.
I mean, you can collect the money.
Yeah, no, there's a good argument to be made for that. But then again, even for programming, if they're like, hey, put our shows on there, they're like, nope. Like it seems like a lose-lose proposition in the end. Like it seems like it's fait accompli if Disney wants to buy it out.
Every time Beauty and the Beast plays, or
but are they going to show that caliber of stuff up there, or is that going to Disney Plus?
Oh, who knows? I don't know. All right, what's next?
Next one is a Netflix original that apparently comes out of France, and that is Omosis. And the concept sounds a little bit like that Black Mirror episode where AI matches you. It looks like it's taking a little bit of a different take. I would say this trailer is not safe for work because it has some nudity. Maybe don't even click the link with children around, I suppose, depending on your environment. But it seems like it might be something worth watching. Again, it's so difficult with Netflix because it's like, all right, watch it. If I didn't like it, whatever. It was effectively free because I've already bought into a Netflix subscription. But it does seem like it might be a very different take, given that it's coming from France as opposed to other sources like the UK and the United States.
Cool.
Well, what to see?
Does it have a release date, Jaime?
Whoops! I just closed that tab. One sec.
Once the tab is closed, we move on.
Where?
Those are the rules.
Did it say in the trailer? I'm going to have to play the trailer and see if it says at the very end.
Oh no!
So I don't think
you can fast forward to the trailer.
Where?
Pro tip.
Is that a date? Move this ad.
So, Jonathan, how's the
March 29th? March 29th is when this is coming out.
All right.
I couldn't see the date because he was covered up by a YouTube ad.
The YouTube ads don't show up on my thing. I don't know. I think I still have some sort of ad blocker installed on my machine.
Must be better than mine because I'm using Ghostery and they come right through.
Yeah, no, I think I'm still using. What am I using? Something because every now and then I see a box and it's got a little closed thing in it and there's no little movie in there or whatever, no little banner ad or whatever. Anyway, so next.
Speaking of Cyclops, as Tim did maybe 10 minutes ago now, we have a new trailer for the Dark Phoenix. That is the latest in the X-Men series, in the X-Men First Class timeline. Which, now that I think about it, it's kind of weird that there is like a Prime and Kelvin timeline thing going on with all of the X-Men movies.
But they do tie it together because they did do that crossover one, right?
Did they? Oh.
They did that Days of Future Past has both the originals and the news, right?
That's where it feels more like a Prime and Kelvin, where there is like a split sort of thing that happens.
Yeah.
So this is hypothetically kind of like a retelling, but actually more of maybe a reimagining or an alternate version of what ended up happening in X-Men: The Last Stand, where the Dark Phoenix power is taking over Jean Grey and the X-Men, and James McAvoy as Captain Picard. No, not Captain Picard.
Yeah, no, the other guy.
Professor Charles Xavier.
That's the guy.
The other guy looks very much like him. And they're trying to take that on. And reminder, it stars I do not remember her name. From
Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer Lawrence and Sophie Turner.
Yes, thank you. I was thinking specifically of Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones. So there's a lot of tie-in here.
Yep. Yeah, and they've been doing this thing with those sort of, for lack of a better term, prequel X-Men movies too, where they've been jumping forward in increments of time that seem disproportionate to the age of the actors, because it felt like they were doing sort of a 60s thing in one and a 70s thing in one and an 80s thing in the other one, and it feels like the 90s in this one, so it's a little weird.
It is, and I have seen people get kind of upset about that, but I would argue that it's more comic accurate to do that, because you take the comics history and they tend to rewrite it every once in a while. So like, Tony Stark wasn't in Vietnam, that wasn't where he got injured, because now it no longer makes sense, and Captain America is impossibly old now, even given the freezing and defreezing period. So I'm kind of okay, like if you sat down and binged these and be like, wait a minute, wasn't it the 1960s when this character came out? How old is this person now?
Yeah, well, again, one of the first X-Men First Class happens around the Cuban Missile Crisis, right? And then later on, I think in the most recent one, Apocalypse, maybe? I swear to God, at one point they were playing like, early 80s new wave music, and I was like, okay, so these characters are like 5 years older than they were in the first movie, or 6 years older than they were in the first movie, but they've somehow leapt forward like 17 years in time? Like, what happened here?
Right. They play a little fast and loose with where does this take place with regard to real world time, but I view it as more like an opportunity for them to do something a little different, give a little bit of like wink wink nudge nudge at nostalgia factors. 60s, did they do 70s in the
yeah, I think that whatever the second one was, I can't even remember what it is anymore.
Days of Future Past, I guess Days of Future Past probably was the
I guess that
second
was
one, because
it.
Apocalypse was the most recent one that was in the 80s, so 60s, 70s, 80s, and now presumably 90s with Dark Phoenix.
Well, the one thing that I will give them credit for is, one of the things that I think a lot of us very long-time comic fans were a little bit we were so thrilled to have comic book characters come to the screen, but the original X-Men movies, when they brought them to the screen, and they all were wearing the matching black and gold uniforms that were very, like, non-comic book, they were very like, we like your characters, but not your looks, and they very much went away from the comic book look of the characters. I think, again, we were thrilled that they were bringing it to life. We were thrilled that they were putting the X-Men in the theaters, and we were thrilled that we were down this path, because the comic book history before the X-Men movies is pretty bleak. Comic book movies were not good. Well, Superman was great, and the original Batman movie from 1989, there are some high watermarks, but Marvel in particular had just been quite bleak as far as comic book movies. We had, Dolph Lundgren as the Punisher. We had, the aborted, Fantastic Four and Captain America movies that were quite terrible. Like, it really was a spotty history at best. So X-Men was a huge revelation, but it was also a little bit of it feels like, the girl in high school who wants you to completely change to go out with her, like it just feels like something, it just felt like they were like, I like something in you, I'm just going to change everything about you, and then you'll be fine. I will say that I do love about this sort of revamped, since the First Class came in, they are doing these time periods, but they're also doing time period reflective costuming and character designs, haircuts. So we get, Storm in the last movie, in the Apocalypse movie, where she's got her 1980s mohawk and leather look that she had in the comic books. We had Psylocke in that movie where she's got her sort of late 80s, early 90s Jim Lee ninja kind of thing going on. Like, they really are sort of an homage, and I'm led led to understand in this movie we're going to see Jubilee in a very 1990s kind of motif. And so it is kind of cool that they are actually like bringing a real vision of some of these the comic book characters to life. You know, these are a little more true to what some of those interpretations were.
Who plays Storm in this generation?
I can't recall her name. I'll look her up here.
I was looking up too. Dark Phoenix.
Because I'm a little gun shy in closing the tab before Tim asked me if it's Dark Phoenix.
Alexandra Shipp is her name. Alexandra Shipp.
Yeah, I don't know who she is. Okay.
So X-Men Dark Phoenix arrives on June 7th.
Oh, see, I was going to ask.
Thankfully, it was helpfully at the bottom of the article and not like I had to scroll through the trailer and avoid the ads. So
where did we leave off on that one for our need to watch versus don't care list when we did our first show of the year here? Where did
Dark
you guys?
Phoenix?
Yeah, where'd you guys fall on Dark Phoenix?
Yeah, I need to watch anything with James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender is I need to watch.
And Jennifer Lawrence. Yeah, I'll be honest. I have not seen any of this generation on anything but home video.
Oh, you mean you haven't gone to the theater and watched it?
I haven't gone to the theater to watch any of the four of these. As a matter of fact, I haven't seen the X-Men movies before that. I think Logan's the only one that I've seen from the last few.
Yeah, I think it's probably the same for me too.
You know, they look great on my TV, and I enjoy them, and they're great movies. But this whole, I guess, because they've kind of been eclipsed over this generation by the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because there is the disconnect, and because they are sort of these self-contained little stories, it doesn't feel like required watching. It feels like I'll get to that, which is not good. Maybe that'll change when the ownership falls back to Disney later this year, but I don't know. And this one in particular, like, this feels like the end of the road. Like, they have to know that this is the end of this iteration of the X universe. If, you know, they're not going to come back and do any more if this is going to be taken over by the mothership.
Oh, right, true.
Think they'd go out with a bang, kill everybody?
Yeah, no, I was wondering why you were saying that, but now I get it. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you knew as a filmmaker, hey, we've got this cast, we've got them signed, you know, we've told this story, you know, we've sort of got to the end of the road, and we know there's going to be no more because we know that the owner of the property is going to take it back and reboot it, you know, I guess you could pull out all the stops, right?
Right, okay. Let's, I think it's time we talk about something else.
Good plan. What should we talk about?
Well, I don't know. You got any time-related stories we can talk about?
Timey-wimey?
I love me some time distortion, you know.
Doctor Who?
So what did I put in my notes? Where's my notes? Let's see. Burnham's log. Yeah, we got some time rifts happening and some a rift in space-time. That's what it was. Yep. All right. So I guess this is part of the show we're talking about Star Trek Discovery, and we're going to talk about Season 2, Episode 7, The Light and Shadows, and the big reveal. So, I think it's Jonathan's turn, yes?
Is it my turn?
Yeah, why not?
All right.
I mean, I took notes so I can counter mark.
Yeah, you feel free to interrupt me whenever you like.
Sure, all right.
So, let's see. We start off with a little internal monologue from Burnham, who is packing her bags because she's decided, as she noted at the end of the last episode, to head home to Vulcan to see if she can continue the search for Spock, which, for those keeping score, has lasted through 6 episodes. So, she's decided that she's going to pack up her bags and she's heading to Vulcan. Meanwhile, the Discovery, which last seen in orbit of Kaminar after last week's very explosive episode with Peru gaining his new rocket launcher abilities in his neck, the Discovery is going to stay at Kaminar because there's a spatial anomaly that is causing some weird timey-wimey stuff to happen outside of the planet there. So they decide they're going to investigate this rift in space-time that's causing time to play tricks on them. They see a little vision of Pike and Ash, a little time echo on the bridge, so they know something's up. So Pike and Ash hop in a shuttle and they're going to go investigate, and they get sucked into this vortex and start basically careening through time. Meanwhile, Burnham heads down to Vulcan and goes to her parents' place and has a conversation with her mom, and her mom basically confesses, actually, yes, search for Spock is over. I've been hiding him here all along. So we discover that Spock has actually been in a place, I guess they said it's a place that sort of shields the mind so that his father couldn't use telepathy to find him. And he is clearly lost his marbles. He's been there, quoting Alice's Adventures in Wonderland book quotes and repeating the same weird pattern of numbers, 841947, over and over again. So and he's grown a mighty beard, so he's clearly not well.
Right. He's also spouting the Vulcan doctrine tones or whatever. Yes.
Yeah. So Amanda and Michael's saying basically like, okay, he's not well. We got to get him out of here. Like, this is not good. And Amanda basically says, hey, I'm an ambassador's wife. I have diplomatic immunity, and he's not going anywhere. You can't take him.
Right.
But then Sarek shows up and says, okay, that's not going to fly. No, that can't keep him here. It's time for him to go. And lets Burnham basically pick him up and take him to deliver him to Section 31, which is an interesting development. His logical reasoning is that they will help find out what is important that's going on in Spock's brain, because clearly it's connected to this Red Angel mystery that's been sort of looming over this whole season that Spock is clearly a linchpin to.
And if Burnham doesn't take him, she's going to get in trouble with her.
Yes,
with
more
Starfleet.
logic.
So he doesn't want to lose both kids in one fell swoop. But you're going to talk about the sort of the Takmar issue that Spock has, being half human and having learning disabilities.
I think you could jump right in there, buddy.
Yeah, so during this conversation where Sarek is talking to Amanda about, they're talking about Spock's humanness and how Amanda read Spock and Michael Burnham Alice in Wonderland when Alice Through the Looking Glass when he was quite young, because he had trouble, sort of human issues coming out of his Vulcan training, and she found that reading him this book sort of settled down his sort of more emotional, curious mind. And so this is what he's doing in this sort of state that he's in, trying to sort this stuff out. Is he's reciting the Vulcan doctrine in order to center himself, but he's also reciting Alice Through the Looking Glass, which gives Burnham a clue later on, and I'll let Jonathan talk about that. But yeah, so and that's when Sarek decides, well, you'd be the best person to take him to Section 31. Why Section 31 is still a mystery to me, but there you go.
Yeah, and as I think Jaime pointed out in a previous episode, like the worst kept secret in this era of Star Trek, clearly, because by the time they show up in the future timeline, they're this shrouded in mystery, nobody knows they exist kind of organization. But here, everyone's like, oh, hey, Section 31, what's happening? So following that thread first, we'll circle back to Pike and Ash and their adventures afterwards. But so Burnham does as she is bade and picks up her brother and delivers him to Section 31, where they basically say, okay, we're going to hook him up to this machine, and the machine is going to help him, trust us. This is, we're all on the same team here. We're going to try and do our best. And they basically say, hey, why don't you, head back to Discovery? And she says, no, I want to stick around. They're like, well, you really can't be here. So she's kind of suspicious of what's going on. And while she's sort of, milling about there, the Emperor basically says to her, hey, listen, between you and me, that device is going to wreck Spock's brain. So you have, two choices. You can basically, leave and let him get his brain melted, or you can attack me right here and right now and go and break your brother free. So we get a nice little fight scene between Michael Burnham and Emperor Georgiou.
How Michelle Yeoh doesn't kick her ass, I don't know.
Well, I think we talked about this in the first season when we had I think it was the fight scene between Lorca and Michelle Yeoh, where we were debating whether or not she had her Muppet leg and was able to. I did not see evidence of any Muppet legs in this fight, but she did look like a few times like she still got some pretty darn good moves. I don't know that would have been a fair fight, but her character was trying to lose, so she does. Burnham knocks her out and basically runs in, grabs Spock, grabs him, grabs the shuttle, and escapes. And we sort of learn that it's intimated at that point that the Emperor is doing this deliberately as a political maneuver to try and sort of put her superior officer Leland off balance. So they take off.
Can we take a minute for some real-time fact check?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got?
Okay, so I said Takmar earlier. Takmar is the meditation practice that Sarek is doing to bring lost souls home, is what he's using telepathic powers to do that. The Latak Tarai is the learning disability or trouble learning that Spock has. It's a bit dysphagia or they call it dyslexia at one point. Yep. So that's what he has. That's our fact check. So
cool.
Save ourselves for next week.
There we go. So wrapping up the Burnham storyline. So Burnham and Spock escape in the shuttle. They take off. We get this little scene between Georgiou and Leland, who Leland basically says, yeah, you did that on purpose. She says, I don't think you should talk to me like that. As a matter of fact, I think I'm in charge here now. And he says, why would I let that happen? He says, well, otherwise I'll tell Burnham the truth. He said, what truth? She says, the fact that you are responsible for her parents' death. So that's an interesting wrinkle in this storyline that hopefully we'll get some development on soon. Meanwhile, Burnham and this number that had been going through Spock's brain, he kept quoting the number 841947. Burnham figures out that the number is backwards and figures out that it's actually, she runs it through the computer, and the computer basically comes back with, the meaning of these numbers, because she figures that it's backwards, so it's 749.
Because of the Alice in Wonderland looking glass thing.
Through the looking glass, absolutely.
Yeah, figures it's backwards.
She figures that it's actually 749 Mark 148 in spatial coordinates, and those spatial coordinates are for Talos 4. Talos 4, which...
Sorry.
Yes, our fans who are fans of the original Star Trek series will recognize the name Talos 4, which will have deep meaning for the crew of the USS Enterprise, in particular Captain Christopher Pike.
That's right.
In the near future. So I pulled this up and stuck it in our notes. Feel free to have a peruse. This is from our Star Trek official website. Talos 4, Class M planet, home of the Talosians. Thousands of centuries ago, a nuclear war nearly wiped out the entire civilization. The survivors lived underground, where they became dependent on illusion-creating technology. The SS Colombo crashed here in 2236. The USS Enterprise visited in 2254, and as of 2266, contacts with Talos 4 was forbidden by Starfleet due to the addictive qualities of the illusion technology. Captain Christopher Pike, however, returned to the planet so he could live out his days unencumbered by his physically damaged body. Of course, that is a tie into the original pilot episode of Star Trek, and tied into the
Cage.
Cage, yes, the Cage, one of the most iconic Star Trek episodes from the original series, where we meet the Talosians. And if for those people who were lucky enough to watch the little sneak preview for next week's episodes, some really good, fancy-looking Talosians coming next week. So,
I didn't watch that. I should go back and watch it.
Yeah,
it updates for the modern era, but you could very easily recognize that that's who they were. They definitely played homage to the 1960s style.
But now they've got pulsing brains.
Well, they had pulsing brains in it then as well.
Yeah, but now it looks gross.
Oh, does it? Okay, sorry.
And now it doesn't look like a Reebok pump, just like they're pumping in their palm sort of thing.
Yep. So we'll circle back and we'll have a discussion about what this all means. But let me wrap up our parallel storyline in what was a really fast-paced and quick episode this week. We talked about it was actually a lot shorter than last week's episode. As far as time, it only appeared to be about 40 minutes total. So we had left our heroes, Pike and Ash, have been sucked into this vortex of time.
But why Pike? Why does Pike go? Pike goes because he used to be a test pilot, and he's the most qualified person, he thinks.
Well, and he and Ash have a bit of a penis showing event going on there, where they're comparing lengths.
The chair outranks the badge, right?
Yes, clearly it does. Yeah, mine is bigger than yours, and even if yours is black and can call people. Anyways.
Whoa.
The badge, guys. The badge can call people, and it's black. That's what... Never mind. Okay, so, yes. So these guys get sucked in there. Tilly and Saru are on the case. They're trying to figure out how they can track them. They're, in this vortex. Saru suggests, I think, that they should loop in Stamets, because Stamets has a different perception of how time works, having had his experiences going through the mycelial network. So Stamets is working with Tilly. They're trying to track how they can figure out where in time they can find them. He basically, what's the comparison? He says it's like trying to catch a grain of salt inside a hurricane with a pair of tweezers, trying to track them through shifting through time. But then he has this sort of epiphany that oh wait, we can actually track them because of my tardigrade DNA. I will transport over and save them. Meanwhile, on the shuttle, the probe that
before the probe.
Oh, before the probe.
Before the probe, they have a big argument, the two of them. And,
yes.
And in fact, Pike even flashes forward and sees himself shooting at Tyler?
Ash Tyler.
At Ash Tyler. Anyway, so what he says, let's do a plasma burn, and Ash is like, what are you, crazy? Why would you do that? So they actually says, finally he just sort of says, look, I outrank you, let's just do this. And so they blast off they basically waste fuel by making these plasma burns as they're flying around inside this distorted time rift thing, whatever.
Yep.
Timey-wimey stuff.
Timey-wimey.
Yeah, that's a clue for you to finish the story.
Okay. And that is how Stamets is able to track them, because they are able to find this
Mr. Reese finds
Mr. Reese, that's true. Mr. Reese, our now famous bridge officer with yet another person on the bridge with a name, finds them, and so they're able to track them in this grain of salt scenario.
Maelstrom, I think, is the word you're looking for.
Yeah, pretty much. So they had launched this probe to try and examine what was happening in there, and this probe basically shows up and attacks the ship. And the probe looks an awful lot like the Sentinels from the Matrix.
Yeah, it crossed over into the Matrix universe.
So they basically say, like, oh, they run a scan on it, and
or was it Doc Octopus? I don't know.
Yeah, pretty much. I guess it had moved forward in time by 500 years and had been upgraded and then sent back in time,
just like V'ger.
If only it had said V'ger on it, but that would ruin the space-time continuum.
Well, it could have said Perb,
or Sentinel. So this thing comes back and it attacks the shuttle. It attacks the two of them, and that's where we get the scenario where Pike has to take a shot at Ash. It's because the probe is actually attacking him, so he's actually taking a shot at the probe to get it from hurting Ash. But this thing embeds itself in the dashboard of the shuttle and starts sucking all the computer information out of the hard drives. And meanwhile, Stamets and Tilly run down to the transporter room because Stamets has the genius idea that using his tardigrade DNA, he can track how to find them, beam over to them in 10 minutes in the future of their time, which is really weird.
He's 10 minutes ahead of them or something like that, but they can see him and talk to him.
But so he basically beams himself, like, this miraculous Hail Mary beams himself onto their shuttle.
And as he trust the math, Jonathan.
And says, trust the math. And Tilly trusts the math, and she beams him over there. And sure enough, it works. He shows up on the ship, on the shuttle, pilots them out of there, but the probe is still attached to the front, and it's sucking all the information out of them. So they end up on the periphery of this timey-wimey vortex. And sure enough, as Ash predicted, when they wasted gas, the gas runs out. So they're going to get sucked back into this vortex. And they end up getting beamed out basically at the last second, but not before this probe basically leaps over from sucking the information out of the computer on the shuttle to what looks to be beaming itself, like assimilating Arium, the robotic officer on the Bridge of Discovery. He gets this sort of weird, like, flashy flashes in her eyes, and clearly has been, like, I don't know what, taken over, rewired, computer virus.
Computer virus. Yeah. She's an augmented human, so she has computer bits in her head.
Yeah. So she's been assimilated by whatever's happened here. So now we've got a rogue agent on board who may or may not be connected or tied to this Red Angel, who we established in this episode, and at the end of the last episode is somebody from the future using some future tech. And so the series, that storyline sort of ends with Pike basically saying to Ash, you're right, I was trying to overcompensate for, missing out on all the fighting when I was off on my mission with the Enterprise. Maybe I don't have anything to prove, and, maybe we can all get along, and kumbaya, and they hug or something. I can't remember.
Yeah. But it's interesting they even talk about how Harry Mudd talked them about space-time when he came and did that thing where he attacked the ship. Mm-hmm. So here, let's play a fun game. This is a fun game. It's a new game for watching Star Trek Discovery episodes, and let's see how many other movies they ripped off making this episode, because they ripped off Star Wars when Burnham and Spock hide in the asteroid as they're being searched for. They hide in an asteroid field, right? They ripped off Spider-Man, The Matrix with the Doc Octopus monster thing, right? They ripped off just about every time distortion, time field, time, even just, I guess, a Deep Space Nine with the wormhole thing, right? And it even looked like the time distortion thing from the reboot where Spock comes through from the future, right? Mm-hmm. I kind of thought that they would have Spock come through a time hole at some point, because that's what they did in the J.J. Abrams reboot. What else did they rip off? They ripped off their own show. They ripped off the Talos 4 cage stuff, right?
No, it's an homage. It's an homage.
Well, it's not a rip-off. Yeah,
it's an homage.
Not quite a rip-off. Exactly.
They Borged Arium a la First Contact.
Right. Yeah. That's true. That's Borged, yeah. And, so it's like the plot, the writers basically borrowed from like at least 5 or 6 different movies, like they had The Matrix we talked about with the Sentinels.
Trust the math, Tim. You got to trust the math.
Oh, right. Yeah. I forgot about the math. Yep.
So what were the standout moments for you guys in this one? And how did you rate it overall? As I say, a very breezy episode.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. I kind of enjoyed it. Section 31 kind of almost bores me, but because it's like that was the one they ripped off, the one where Kirk and Spock and those guys go down to the planet and they have that rehabilitation machine where they supposedly they apply lights and whatever, and it's supposed to rehabilitate the criminals and make them good. But the criminal dude takes over the prison planet, and he's like a master criminal, whatever, and he puts Kirk onto it and tries to suck Kirk's brain out of it, right? So that was sort of what this machine that they were putting Spock into, it reminded me of, although we didn't get to the lights part. I thought it was good. It was a good episode. I thought, again, I'm a sucker for anything with a time distortion in it. As she said, everything's better when you put time in front of it. So, and she kept trying to. She even said time tsunami at one point. She goes, that doesn't quite work as well. But they did get hit by time tsunami at one point, or they were about to when they zapped off into space, the final frontier. So how many have been awfully quiet?
Well, I think Jonathan did a really good job of recapping the show. It went really quick. I guess that was partially running time, but I also felt entertained as well. So I rate it, having just, seen it not that long ago, a couple hours ago by now. I definitely think it was maybe one of the better ones. I don't know that it's as good as like the second episode of the season where they went to the church.
Right.
But I could definitely see some promise. Like I wouldn't be mad if a lot of episodes were like this. They can't all be. I think you need room to breathe. Other notes I have here, you covered the space dyslexia, which is what I had. I had Sarek and Amanda need some severe marriage counseling, just given their relationship and how things work out for them. Thought it was interesting. I wrote Thor's hammer is the way that the probe worked once it got inside, and sort of like as if the computer console was Thor's hand reaching out for Mjolnir. It just looked like that sort of style to me. And I couldn't remember the numbers because I didn't, during one of the first breaks, I didn't quite get them. So I wrote 8675309
there was a
reminder to myself.
There was a 30% chance that somebody would have written it down, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, 33% chance.
Yeah. And I was also curious about how the going to Talos 4, which I definitely recognized, what that would mean given the penalty for going there and the Pike's 10-year Instagram challenge that doesn't turn out too well for him, given how good he looks right now.
Yeah. That is the thing about this season. It's a little weird, too. As much as it's nice to sort of feel the connection, and obviously the first season, we didn't have that as strongly. So the stakes are high, right? When it's the Firefly thing. We've talked about that as sci-fi fans. You can kill off characters if you create the characters. If you're using characters that are from pre-existing material that have a future after this, you can't kill those characters. So the risk factor goes down. So we know they're not going to kill Pike, and we know they're not going to kill Spock. I mean, that takes some of the edge off of this, where, Pike was in, the timey-wimey thing today. It's like, how bad could this get? We know this guy's going to end up as a vegetable in a chair at some point, really his worst is yet to come.
Right.
So, that I think that it does take kind of the edge off this a little bit.
So are we guaranteed that this is going to lead, is this really going to lead into the original series? Is that where, I guess that's the setup, but, the original Enterprise TV show kind of skirted around that a bit too, right? Because they had tech more advanced than the original series as well.
Yeah, they had different tech, though, because, again, their transporters weren't fully functional, but they had the grappling hook, and, there was sort of some ups and downs. Again, it's unavoidable. The problem is that, as a writer, you want to be able to write yourself out of problems. That's why being a sci-fi writer is so awesome, because you can be like, hey, what if they had a device that did that? When you're writing for a series that's a prequel to an established series of canon, canon, you're going to end up in traps from time to time where you're like, you know what would be great here? If there was a Ferengi. What if the Borg showed up? Like, no, we already said the Borg didn't show. What if the Borg showed up? Like, all right, let's bring out the Borg costume.
Exactly.
Okay, this week we've got no budget. What do we have in the costumes closet? Well, we've got some Borgs and some Ferengis. Great. Dress somebody up as a Borg and a Ferengi and get them out here.
Let's get John Delancey on the phone.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. It's because I think I'm kind of spoiled by J.J. Abrams because he stuck true to the character of the people in the world, but he's kind of gone off script in a sense, because he's not married. Like, because now with Vulcan being gone and
he's rewriting history as opposed to like he's sort of trying to keep some of the notes, but
well, I mean, and you could say that the butterfly effect of Spock coming back from the future broke the Star Trek universe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because then we saw that in Into Darkness, right? It was the whole Spock doesn't die, Kirk dies, fighting Khan at a different period in time.
Oh, really?
Have you seen the film?
Kirk dies.
Yeah, they do the reverse of Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, that was the whole like punchline of that movie was that Spock is the one who ends up, he ends up in like a fist fight with Khan to get his blood to try and keep Kirk from being really dead. And
oh, I see. Okay, right. Okay, yeah. It's been a while since I saw that movie.
Yeah,
they had the Star Wars, the fighting as they're driving through the floating car scene.
Yep, that is the exact one. Yeah, not maybe the best Star Trek film of all time, but yeah, again, obviously, once you hit the reset button in one point in history, it's that whole, you're right, butterfly effect, right? You can just sort of keep the ripples just keep going.
Right, yeah.
So, for good or for bad.
For better or worse, exactly.
Yep.
All right. By the way, I didn't watch the Orville.
What?
I know we talked about it.
You probably should.
You probably should.
You've gone this far, Tim, and you've got enough of the context for what's happened this season to make this first part of the two-parter worth watching.
Okay, so
you say. All right.
I say we press pause on that one, and we'll do a recap of both parts next week, because I think it'll be good to digest the whole thing as a whole. I was thinking about before we started recording this one, I was like, is there a way for us to all watch the second part beforehand? But no, it won't be on until too late our time for Jaime to watch it. I think we should see how this all wraps up, because this was the first episode this season of Orville where I was like, you have my interest.
Yeah, a lot of fans on the Reddit were calling it the moment when the Orville grows its beard. Referencing Will Riker growing his beard and getting much better as a character, and the show as getting better.
Yeah, no, this was like a step forward for that show in my mind. Do you go to, you look at Reddit and places like that referring to the Orville? I know you're probably a bigger fan at this point.
Sidebar on Reddit for a minute too.
Yeah. So Jaime, you're probably a bigger fan right now of Orville, I would say, than maybe Tim and I are. Do you get the sentiment that there's still a very strong ride for this show? Because some people seem to really love it.
Yeah, I think it's either going to give you that comfort food feeling, like Kraft mac and cheese, or it doesn't, I don't think there's a whole lot of in between.
Well, I think maybe they're coming from the universe that I talked about last week, where they don't watch CBS All Access, so they're not watching Discovery.
Well, and some people really against the J.J. Abrams movies we were just talking about, against Discovery, even to a degree against the Enterprises and whatever else. I think there's a sort of a contingent of sci-fi fans, Trek fans, and just casual viewers who just want comfort food, right? Like they want, and Orville's not hard to digest. It's really
it's Flintstones Star Trek,
Yeah, I mean, Brennan Braga wrote the last week's episode. Like, it's Star Trek Next Generation.
Oh,
Brennan Braga is one of the writers from the original Star Trek Next Generation. Very well known and established Trek writer, and he's now a writer on the Orville. Like, this is coming from a very Star Trek Next Generation place.
Yeah, I find that the whole set of the Orville. I mean, I get that it's a future and everything's supposed to be clean and there's like little Roombas running around all the time cleaning the place, but it's too pristine for me.
Yeah. Especially when they portray the characters as slobs too. Like, not everybody's, in the future.
Take Saru's bedroom, for instance. Like, he's got, it's overgrown with, vegetation, right? Like, that's how that man wants to live, right? So,
yeah.
So here's the sidebar I want to go into, because I've tried this for a couple of times, and I know Jaime's a big user of Reddit, and I know you are too, I guess, or not quite as big. But
not as big, but I do.
How the hell do you read Reddit? I've gone in a few times to try to, like it's just like it's like Reddit / whatever, but how do you get to the whatever?
I'm sorry, I don't understand. So, like, let me talk, because I take a lot of stuff for granted.
Homepage and I just scrolling through. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. But I'm not sure where the magic in Reddit is. You know?
Sure. So, if you go to reddit.com/r/ and then anything you type from that point is almost certainly like a thing that exists.
Right. Okay.
Star Trek / Star Trek Discovery, the Orville, House of Cards, those sort of things. If you can think of it, there's probably a Reddit or similar. You can think of it like user-generated forums. Everything right. Reddit.com/r, that just tells the Reddit site, like, oh, you want to look at one of these subreddits or sub-forums, if you think it that way.
I suppose the homepage is very much like the Twitter trending page, which I never go to, right?
Oh, yeah, it's utter chaos. I wouldn't even bother unless you really want to know the pulse of the internet.
Like, I had to have a 13-year-old explain to me how to use Snapchat, right? But, like, and I kind of feel that I need a 30-year-old explain to me how to use Reddit, you know?
No. I get why you're confused, because it's got like animals and politics and video games and technology and funny, and it's just this weird chaos, like a completely unfiltered Twitter stream, where I prefer to go more into the actual categories or specific subject matter.
Well, that's what I mean. Do you like favorite things, or do you follow threads or whatever, or forums, or do you mark them as something I want to be notified about, or?
Yeah, I just go in occasionally and be like, all right, I just watched the episode. Let me see what fans thought.
/ Orville and away you go, or whatever.
Yeah, and then usually somebody somewhere has created the live episode discussion and then the post-episode discussion.
Oh, okay.
I try to avoid those. Like right now, I'm obviously not going to go there because I have not seen the episode of the Orville while we're recording this very show. But then once I do, so I'll go in and see, like, all right, what did people think? What did they pick up on that I didn't catch?
Right. Okay. Fair enough. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah. I mean, Reddit or not is definitely separate, but I do think since you have gone this far, I think you should watch last week's episode of the Orville.
Yeah, I've been trying to binge through get through the High Castle, and I'm almost finished. But it's funny, like, again, like, you know, I really enjoy it, but like the episodes are like 90 minutes long, like crazy.
Yeah, no, it's this is the first time I can say this all season. I'm looking forward to tonight's episode of the Orville.
All right, that's surprising.
It is. I appreciate that. It's just it was the first time where, and I can't say it was, again, it was probably the most entertaining episodes this season, I would say, but also it wasn't perfect, and we'll get into that in our discussion next week. I would a little teaser, and this really is not related to the episode, so I'll put it out there. The beginning of the episode, in a very non-related to anything part of it, is Penny Johnson as the doctor. She's there, and she's got her two little kids, right? Penny Johnson's 58 years old. How old is that little one?
He's got to be 7, 8, maybe
6, 7. Like, yeah. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't help but math that one out.
That's true.
Well, it depends on. I don't actually know the character's age.
They don't establish what her age is, and maybe we're supposed to assume that, you know, by whatever century that is that they live in, that procreation that is at your discretion. You can just, you know, pop a baby out whenever you'd like. But she was there, and she was.
Dish, who knows, right?
She was momming this kid in the first, you know, couple minutes of the episode, and I found myself thinking, she looks like his grandma. Like, it's not working for me. But we can digress into that next week. Anytime I have the opportunity to rail against Penny Johnson's acting, I'm down. I'm still just the worst part of that show.
What was she in before that you dislike her so much?
She was on Castle for years.
Oh, Castle.
And she was not. She was the police captain, so she comes in at season, I think 4, maybe 3, 4, and is sort of rides it out to the end. And of course, she's been an actress for years, for 20, 30 years. She's always been in different things, and I've never been a huge fan. And I remember reading some of her more controversial comments a few years ago, and that sort of soured me on her as a person, let alone her acting, which has always been a little questionable on for my tastes. But
it's like the doctor on the Next Generation. Was it Maria Muldaur? Was her name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Diana
Muldaur. She was actually a character in a lot of the original series, right?
Yeah, she was on the yeah. Maria Muldaur was a singer, wasn't she?
Yes, yeah, but Diane Muldaur, like, I just because she was like always the love interest for William Shatner, right? But then she showed up as a doctor, and I kind of wondered if that's why. I mean, because I look at what a lot of decisions that Seth MacFarlane must be involved in making in terms of who he's picking to play these different roles, right? Yeah, and they're all sort of. It's almost like watching Galaxy Quest, a TV show, you know?
Yeah,
you know, everything's like just a little off, but you know, like grab Thar's hammer.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to our watch list. So I have to admit, I'm often picking up things for the show and pasting them in when I'm on the streetcar or whatever, and I cannot for the life of me remember what the letter K is representative of something. Something that's coming up that's starting with the letter K. I don't know what it is, or something I think you should watch that starts with the letter K. So
to all our listeners out there, stay tuned, and sometime in the future, Tim's going to have a great follow-up in the watch list for something that starts with the letter K.
Yeah, so this week's episode is brought to you by the letter K. That's all I got. I have to go through because it could be on my iPhone history, it could be on my Mac history, it could be on my iPad history. I don't know. Something starts with K. It's going to be really good.
That's a good teaser here. I'm in.
It may not be that
trailer
good.
For the trailer sort of thing.
Exactly.
The teaser for a future watch list.
It could even be a typo. It may not even actually be like K. It might just hit K on the keyboard. Anyway, so I don't know if you've seen this Pixar movie called. Basically, it's a short cartoon called Purl, and it's about a ball of yarn that gets a job in an office with a bunch of guys who are all hanging around being guys and going off and having beers and stuff like that. And it's all about. It's basically it's written by I believe it's written by a woman and directed by a woman, and it's basically about trying to fit into an office where the workplace is not equal in any way. So, and the headline here on this note says Pixar Ball of Yarn perfectly explains workplace inequality. So check it out if you haven't seen it yet. Have you guys seen it at all? Or
no?
It just popped up on my radar. I think I saw a tweet on Twitter about it, and people were piling on to make positive comments about it, I must say. And I thought, oh, what's that? And so I went and clicked on it and watched it, and it's about this ball of yarn who changes. I mean, I hate to be politically correct, but it's clearly meant to be an analogy about a woman working in a man's workplace, right? And she changes her behavior and becomes more like them, and says, makes the bad jokes and all that kind of stuff, and they start to accept her until another ball of yarn gets a job working in the place. And then she kind of looks at the other ball of yarn and goes, well, maybe we should just be ourselves, right? And that's kind of, and then, in the future, there's, men and balls of yarn all working in this office.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a short that covers the difference between integration and inclusion.
Right, exactly.
So I think it's definitely worth a watch. I ended up seeing it, I think, on some playlist where Academy Award-winning short Bao, also from Pixar, came out. I also recommend that one as well. I don't know if we've talked about that in the show.
No, that's one this week, right?
Yeah, that one's a good one about a Chinese or possibly Chinese American mother, and she creates a little child out of the bao, like the Chinese pork bun.
Really?
I won't talk any more about that because it's better to just see it spoiler free. It's not very long. It's like 5 to 8 minutes tops because these are shorts after all, so worth checking out.
Sure. Okay, cool. So what do you got, Jaime?
I have a couple things here. The first one is a YouTube video by Junkball Media covering the first Enterprise D toy that came out back in like the 80s. 1988. That was done by Galoob. It's only a short video. It's about 4.5 minutes. It covers this particular toy and some of the details behind it. I have, or I guess I had one of these. Not a brand new one. I had a used one. It was super cool. It was die cast, heavy as hell, sturdy, and it had saucer separation, just like the show.
Is from the TNG. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. The Enterprise D, Galaxy class Enterprise.
How big was it? How big was it?
Well, he shows in his hands. It was probably 5 to 6 inches on the longest point.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
So
there was a big plastic one too at one point too, right?
Yeah, this is not like one of those larger ones, and I was sort of mentally comparing it to the Micro Machines version that I had, made out of plastic that were like the size of a silver dollar. I don't know what the equivalent changes in
we have silver dollars here too,
or maybe like a 50-cent piece. I'm trying to remember. Yeah. It's so hard because the size scale is different, with little child hands, so I'm unclear how big it was. And it's also kind of mentally comparing it to the more modern, highly detailed, super expensive Eagle Moss models. No, this one was pretty good. I think it was like $5 to $10 back in the day. Got mine used. My grandparents got it for me used from like Goodwill or something, which meant that the saucer separation I talked about, it would separate real well. It wouldn't stay together real well. So we had to get like a little, like the little plastic tab or something that they show in this video I'd never seen before because it had broken off of mine. So we had like rolled up newspaper or cardboard or something that would just like wedge in there when you wanted to not separate. Otherwise, you'd drop that thing on your foot. It would probably crack a toe.
And that's why it's not on the market anymore.
Yeah. Like I do not recommend doing die cast in that size. It was insane. Like it is probably no longer allowed by the Federal Trade Commission in the United States or something, where it's like illegal because it could be used to murder another child, sort of thing.
Right.
Nice.
What else you got there?
This one is an article by Matthew Panzarino at TechCrunch. I must admit, I have not read it because it is huge, and I did not have, but it's on my reading list, not my watch, my reading list, titled How Disney Built Star Wars in Real Life. And this is talking about the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge that's coming to Disneyland and Disney World. And it looks, I kind of skimmed through it really briefly, and it looks like it's pretty cool. It shows some info and some pictures about what Disney was thinking and the sort of approach they took towards crafting this experience. So I'm pretty excited about that and learning more about what sort of story and experience that they're trying to craft for park attendees. I thought it'd be worth for people who are interested in the kinds of things we talk about in this show.
Yeah, I've seen some of the pictures that have come out this week of different parts of it, and it's amazing. It's just amazing the amount of work they put into this thing.
Yeah, the little part that I read, again, I said I kind of skimmed through it and wanted to sit and give it a deeper reading because they purposely chose something that was new content with some familiarity so that you wouldn't feel like you're at a disadvantage if you're not 100% versed in the lore for Star Wars. It's certainly, I'm sure, better if you are, because you can get more of the subtlety and nuance and maybe some of the Easter eggs. But it sounds like they didn't want it to be intimidating for people who don't live and breathe and can, argue back and forth about what the perfect watching order is for the whole Star Wars saga.
Cool. All right. What you got, Jonathan?
Last but not least, so as mentioned at the opening of this episode, I have been here in our beautiful nation's capital all week long, and in an effort to be kind and gracious and a good husband, I am not watching ahead on Umbrella Academy without my beloved partner. So I decided it was time to start getting back into the Marvel Netflix world, and started back with season 2 of Jessica Jones, which I had not yet caught on board. So I've binged my way through about halfway, and it's really great, as I knew it would be. Another one of those ones that makes you wonder why you wait so long for these things. But I had always had that on the back burner because Netflix always feels like it's always going to be there, as opposed to all the things that come up, and it's great. So I'm looking forward to powering my way through the rest of that stuff. I'm expecting to be sitting around the Ottawa airport for a while tomorrow, so do a little Netflix downloading before I go to work tomorrow, and try and power through a few more episodes tomorrow and finish that one off. It's really good.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess that's it, for the week.
That's it. That's all.
So, Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithTheHair.
And Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram as @JPKNews.
All right, and I'm Timitra, TIMMITRA, on those same things, but Twitter is the best place to get a hold of me. And so, until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
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 If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us out on our website at spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Binge
Orville. Yeah. One thing that I forgot to tuck into our notes. Did you guys see that Morgan Woodward died this week?
Who is
Morgan Woodward? He was on a couple of episodes of the classic original Star Trek series. He was in the first season in Dagger of the Mind. He was Dr. Simon Van Gelder, the guy who's the director of the facility for the criminally insane. Remember that one?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then he was in the second season as Captain Ron Tracy. He was best known for being on. He was on one of those actors you just immediately recognize him when you see him. But he was on Dallas, and he was on Bonanza, and he was on like all those shows in the 70s. And you look at his list, and it's just like, yeah, Wagon Train, Days of Our Lives, Star Trek Bonanza, Gunsmoke. He was on the Logan's Run TV show as well. He was on the A-Team for a while. He made it into an episode of the X-Files. He was on 7 years on Dallas. He was in Cool Hand Luke. He was in all kinds of stuff. Again, he's just one of those guys where you see him all the time. But two classic Star Trek episodes this guy was a hand in. So I saw that they tweeted that out over their social media channels this week.
Yeah, I think he's the guy that I said was the guy who took over the prison and tried to melt Kirk's brain.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah.
Yep. So farewell to you, sir. He lived a very long life. He died age 93.
Wow, at the age. Yeah, he was the bullwhip master guy on the chain gang.
Oh, and Cool Hand Luke?
Yeah, Cool Hand Luke, yeah.
Yeah. Yep, he was again, another one of those classic Hollywood that guys where you're like, I've seen that guy in everything for years.
Yeah, true. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sad to see him go.
Mm-hmm. Well, in 93 years, we should all be so lucky.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Peter Tork died too. Did you see that?
I did. He died right before we recorded last week, and didn't know where that sort of fit into our overall milieu, other than to say he's been a part of pop culture pretty indelibly for 50 years.
Yeah. Well, the Monkees were an interesting thing. They were the first boy band or first type of band like that, I guess, right?
Well, they were the first that sort of contrived band, right? That there was the first one where they were like, what if we put 4 good-looking kids together and got them some instruments?
And got Boyce and Hart to write the music and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And Neil Diamond, and eventually they wrote their own music because a couple of them were musicians. Mike Nesmith and Peter Tork, I think, were high school buddies or something like that. So, did you know how Mike Nesmith became rich man?
Post-it notes?
No, Whiteout. His mother invented Whiteout.
Whiteout. There we go. So I knew there was some sort of office supply that his family was responsible for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's and you apparently quite well to do. You got to wonder how the Whiteout empire has dwindled in the era of tweets and texts. Yeah.
Well, they must have invested well.
It's like all those musicians who are now like, well, I know I'm 75, but I better get back out on tour because my royalty checks are drying up. The Whiteout money is starting to dry up. You're like, damn it, I thought we had it made.
Yeah. Peter Frampton goodbye tour, right?
I saw that. He said he's got a degenerative disease now.
Wow.
Yeah, he said he's going to do one more tour this year and then he's going to retire because he's got a degenerative muscular disease that is going to prevent him. He said, I'm pretty sure I won't be able to play the guitar by this time next year.
Wow, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. Oh, geez. So it's well, we've ended this episode on a high note.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I completely stepped into that one. I didn't even know that particular aspect. I just saw the news title.
Yeah.
The headline. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they announced that he was going to go on a farewell tour, and I was like, oh, Peter Frampton's doing a farewell tour. I wonder, again, he's an older man, obviously. He's been around for a very, very long time. And I saw the details. I was like, oh, my goodness, that's quite the reason to go on a farewell tour.
Yeah, there's a guy I've been watching on YouTube. I've forgotten the name of him now, but he actually went to Frampton's place and did an interview with him and he shows, Frampton's showing off some stuff. He's been, he played with David Bowie, and he played, on his own, of course he had the Frampton Comes Alive. Everybody in the 70s was issued a copy of Frampton's Comes Alive.
Oh, it's a Wayne's World joke, but it's a true one. I have a copy. I'm sure you had a copy back in the day.
My sister had it, which I borrowed all the time.
Yeah, ubiquitous album, and that performance of Do You Feel is one of the most iconic live performances of the decade.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it's funny, it wasn't such a big single back at the time. It was the sort of the pop hits that were on the charts, and people listen to that one occasionally. But it was it's become the talk box track, right? Anyway, so I seriously have to go binge watch the Orville and try and catch up on some more High Castle and get through that series. And you have to go and do your stuff, and Jaime has to go finish eating dinner or dessert or whatever.
Yeah, gonna pack up my troubles. I finally get to go home after a week up here, so I'm gonna pack up my troubles and get ready to go in the morning. So, yoo-hoo!
Woo! All right. Well, I'll see you guys next week.
All right.
Yeah. Let's look. I mentioned this yesterday.
Next week you're in Japan.
Yeah, and timing wise might be difficult, not because of the time difference. It actually is way more convenient because it's like lunchtime roughly.
Yeah. But is it a day you're at the conference or your day off or?
No, this one it looks like it'll conflict with a tour of the Sony offices that they offered for the speakers. So
you can report back on the trip to Sony when you get back.
Yeah. Is there any Sony? Let's see. I wonder if I can watch Into the Spider-Verse before heading over there, so I can know what I'm talking about. Like, oh yeah, that movie, right?
Well, is it the development side you're going into, or the technology side? I mean, like just about everything I own says Sony on it when it comes to my hi-fi system.
I have no idea what we're walking into. It could be PlayStation. It could be Sony Music. It could be Sony Motion Picture.
All we're saying, Jaime, is maybe swipe us some stuff,
right?
Yeah, get us a nice Sony t-shirt. Yeah, for sure.
Just like a flat screen, whatever fits under your coat, whatever. We're good.
Extra large or double extra large.
That's fine. Yeah, whatever.
We're not proud.
No.
Some Sony pins, pins.
PlayStation, whatever you see.
Yeah. What are the chances you're going to run into some MTJC fans over there, or even Spotcast fans?
That would be very, very interesting if that ended up happening.
Do you have a Spotcast T-shirt to wear as well as your MJTC shirts?
Yeah, I do have a Spotcast shirt, and I'd have to think about which MTJC shirt to wear. Maybe I'll wear that during the conference talk, since I am talking about helping developers buy podcasting, so it would make sense to represent the brand there.
Yeah, it's so funny. For Christmas, I went over to. I'd ordered a Spotcast shirt for Jonathan, but it didn't come in time. So I went over to this print-on-demand place on Yonge Street and, got them printed. Like I made an illustrator version of the logo and took it over there and had them printed out. And they do it in like 5 minutes or whatever. It's ridiculous. And so I got Jonathan and Xavier, our number one fan, a T-shirt, right, and gave them for Christmas. And then the one that I ordered from that Teespring, because the online one that we ordered. But the Teespring people centered the crest, like it's not supposed to be. The word is supposed to be centered, so it looks really weird. Have you noticed that, Jonathan, on your shirt?
Yeah, it's not quite right, but it's funny because you made the other one. So the one for Xavier is white on green, and so green's his favorite color. Yeah. The one you got made for me is white on black, and then the one that came from them is the sort of more proper, so it's a full color logo on a blue shirt, so it looks very Trekky, and then on the back it's got the URLs and the where to find us. Yeah. But it's funny because Xavier wears his all the time. He wears it to school. He wears it all over the place.
Oh, really?
He is our walking billboard, which is awesome. But he keeps saying, I should have gotten the good shirt with the logo on the name on the back, because people are like, what's a Spotcast? I'm like, all right, well, we'll order you a shirt. If you're going to billboard for us, we'll order you a shirt.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we'll have to, we'll splurge for our number one fan. We'll get him a shirt that's got the ways people can find us.
Well, we could also do that on the back of the print on demand. All right.
Always a pleasure, gentlemen.
Talk to you next week.
All right, talk to you
later.
Have
a good trip, Jaime.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, having fun in Japan for sure. Konnichiwa and all that kind of stuff.
We look forward to our presents.
Yes.
Yes.